All right, what up, what up, what up, what up? It's your boy B-Phil, and we are back again. And we're going to talk about the other way to make functions with Bedrock agents today. Let's jump right into it. So, at a high level, this is basically what we're going to be building. The next one, we'll jump into the code so you can get deeper into it. But for now, let's just use the console. So we're going to be creating a simple SQL agent. So we're just going to rename these SQL agents, right? Because who doesn't love SQL? So basically what we're doing is we're going to create this agent, and this agent is going to have a policy. And in AWS language, all a policy is just a list of things that this agent can do. And it's going to allow it to communicate with Anthropic's Claude Haiku, and it's going to allow it to communicate with this Lambda function. Now, in this Lambda function, we're going to have a policy called a resource-based policy connected to this so that it can connect, or it can be invoked by Bedrock. And finally, we're going to just go ahead and throw a database into the zip file with the Lambda function. So we have like a little small SQL-like data set to work with, and we don't have to do any external calls for now. And you could just think for your use case, well, you just put your database connection string. So let's just jump right into it. We're going to go into the console here, and we're going to get started. So first, we want to go ahead and navigate to Amazon Bedrock. And before you get started, if you haven't yet, make sure you go ahead and manage your model and enable Claude 3, Sonnet, and Haiku. We're going to show the differences between those today. So let's go ahead and jump over here to the Agents tab. We're going to click Create New Agent, and we're going to call this SQL Agent. Great. Agent that interprets the user call and translates it to SQL. It's funny because I have a transition set to Q, and it keeps changing. So we have our agent name, and what I'm going to do is already have a document for this information. But what we want to do first is we want to go ahead and give our agent some instructions. And so what we're going to do is we're going to tell it to generate SQL queries based on the SQL table information, which we're going to pass in via function. So we're going to give this agent two functions that allows it to get table information for that database, and then get the tables or usable tables for that database, and then get the information for those usable tables based on the query that the user has. So the questions will be in the scope of work experience, social media profile details, and other categories that will fit in the aforementioned scope. So I've gotten very verbose with this, but we could ultimately simplify this. We're going to use this prompt for now, and you can go ahead and pause this and copy this down for your own use case. And prompt engineering, you have to tweak it to make these models do what you want. So keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and utilize this prompt. We're going to paste this down here in instructions for agent. And we want to let it create a new service role. We have our description here. And right here in the model section, we want to go ahead and select Claude 3 Haiku. And next, we're going to go ahead and create action groups. So if we go back to our diagram, this is the part we're going to do now. So we have a SQL agent action group. And in this action group, we have a Lambda function. And this Lambda function is going to have multiple sub-functions within it that allow some particular functionality. So in this case, get tables and then get table information. So let's go ahead and jump back into it. So we're going to go ahead and click Add here on Action Groups. We're going to say SQL functionality. And we're going to go ahead and utilize define with function details. Last one, we went ahead and utilized the define with API schema, but this way is arguably a lot more simple. We're going to really quick create a new Lambda function, and it's going to go ahead and create a Lambda function that we're going to edit and add some code to. And then we want to go ahead and add our action group functions. And so first, we're going to go ahead and put the name. And so again, I've already outlined these. We're going to call it get tables for the first one. And we already have the description, which is get the usable tables for the database. And this one isn't going to take any parameters, so we can go ahead and click the button add group function, and we're going to add the second function, which is get tables information. And this one is going to have parameters. And so first, let's get our description. And these descriptions are important because they're actually passed into the context of the LLM so that it understands more about what the function does. So when it's thinking about calling something, it knows specifically what it probably should use. And so we're going to go ahead and paste this here. Now for the parameters, we want to go ahead and add parameters here, and we want to pass in a table list. We're going to hit the check mark, and this is going to be list of tables. Hit the check mark, and this is going to be an array. We're going to hit the check mark, and of course we want to go ahead and make sure that this is required. Now we'll see this later on. I'll show you in a bit. So I already have this tables list, and then list of table names and array. So we'll just say tables list and save that, and we'll hit create. And we want to put an underscore there and hit create. Great. So now it's going to go ahead and create this function stub, or action group rather. Now what we want to do is we want to go back to the action group, and we can see here that it created a Lambda function for us. So we're going to go ahead and view that Lambda function. All right. So now we're here and we have some base level code, and it's good because it gives you exactly what you need in this particular handler. So before I go ahead and show you the code that we're going to use, it's going to be very similar to this. So you get your agent, right? You get your action group passed from the actual agent. You get your function name, and then you get the parameter list. And so from there, what you're able to do is read in those particular functions. So let's go ahead and show you the example now. And this looks like we're crashing here. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and look at the function here in VS Code. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, first, what we want to do is we're going to use a LangChain library, and I'll show you how to zip this up towards the end of this video and put it into Lambda via console. So we're going to go ahead and use a SQL database import from LangChain, OS, and shutil. So what we're going to do, and this is all going to be included, so you can probably find a link somewhere in the description. But we're going to go ahead and specify our database, and we're going to be using SQLite here, and I have a LinkedIn database.db. Now, for our two functions, as we defined in our action group, we have get tables and get tables information. So these are going to be the functions we're going to deploy inside of our Lambda function. Next, we want to define a Lambda handler. And so we'll go ahead and get our Lambda handler. And again, this is going to be the same as we just saw on the previous screen, where we have these functions here, or excuse me, this function, Lambda handler, and these parameters. So, or variables rather. We're going to do that. We're going to go ahead and first reference our database, make sure we copy it to the temp directory inside of the Lambda function. Next, we're going to go ahead and get our stub variables as we saw on the previous screen. So we had agent, action group, function, parameters, and the response body. And by default, we're going to set it to error no function was called. Now, this is where the magic is going to happen. So first, we're going to go ahead and set an if statement let's see here. We're going to set an if statement. And you see if function equals get tables. And so we're getting that from this function variable that's passed in to the Lambda handler from the agent. So we're going to get the tables, and we're going to set the response body of the output from that function. So it's just going to be an array of table names. Else, if the function is equal to get tables information, we're going to set a variable, and we're going to loop through the actual parameters. And if the name of the parameters is tables list, then we're going to go ahead and set tables to our parameter value. Then we're going to go ahead and handle the error if it doesn't exist. So we're going to go ahead and do this here. And we want to go ahead and pull that out right there. So if not tables, we're going to raise an exception, and we're going to send in the message missing mandatory parameter tables list. Next, we're going to print the tables just for logging purposes. And then we're going to go ahead and set tables information variable to the output of our get tables information function. And then we're going to go ahead and set the response body. Now, the following is, again, what we saw in the stub function that we were given. And we're just going to go ahead and create an action response object, pass in these variables, and then we're going to pass in the action response into our function response, and we're going to return it back to our our agent. Okay, so now we have that function all ready to go. What we need to do here is we need to go ahead and upload it. And so what I've done is I've created a small SQLite database that will be provided in the zip file. So what we'll do is I need to get this database so you all can see. So beforehand, of course, what I did is I went ahead and loaded a small SQLite database, and you're going to see this here. It's called LinkedIn database. So I'm going to copy that over here to this directory. I'm going to reveal this in Explorer first. And we're going to go ahead and copy this. Awesome. So if we would go ahead and refresh this, we'll see. We should see. All right, there we go. There's our database. And so we're going to zip this along with all the other dependencies that we need. So what we're going to go do is I'm going to use my zip Lambda. So first we need to make a directory called package, and we need to go to our terminal. We need to move in to this directory. We need to go ahead and pip install, and we'll say target package. Oops, hold on, let's see, dot, and let's go pip 3 install langchain, and then we'll say target dot package. And we're going to wait for this to go ahead and install the dependencies into our package directory. All right. So it looks like we're having some issues here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, after you've installed into this package, looks like I have some connection issues. So we're going to go ahead and proceed with a package I've already set up. So after you've done that zip, you'll get some particular file named my deployment package. And with that deployment package, you're going to go ahead and just go ahead and drop that into Lambda. So what we'll go ahead and do is we're going to upload the zip file. We're going to upload here. And we want to go ahead and find our package. All right. So we are having some issues here. All right, so we're gonna go back here. Thought I had it, but apparently I don't. So we're gonna try a pip install again. And it looks like all right, so we'll say pip install langchain target.for package. All right, so we just had to use pip there. And after we've installed that here in the package, we're gonna then run this script. So instead of SQL text.py, we're gonna say lambda function.py, and then we're gonna zip our LinkedIn database in there as well. So we'll copy these files, paste them in the command line, and there we go. We have my deployment package. So now what we're gonna do with this is we're going to simply go back to our AWS console, click zip file, we're gonna upload it here. We're gonna go to the folder where we just created this. And we're gonna go ahead and select our file. Now it's 43 megabytes, rather large, of course. So you might wanna do something like a Lambda layers on top that it makes this reusable with potentially all the different LangChain packages or anything else that's a dependency that is required in any of your projects going forward. So we're gonna hit save. And we're going to wait for this to go ahead and load up. One thing we want to go ahead and do after this uploads is we want to go ahead and change the handler function. And if you recall, what we did is name our file lambda underscore function. So we want to go ahead and modify our handler to be similar. So we'll say lambda underscore function, and we'll save that. Now we have our deployment package. Next, we want to go ahead and set up the permissions that we mentioned in the diagram. So let's go to our configuration, hit the permissions button. And as you can see, it's already set. So agents invoke function, it has a principal of Bedrock, and it allows the Lambda invoke function. So we don't have to do anything, thank goodness. All right, so now we have all of this set up. Now we can go back to our Bedrock agent, scroll down to the bottom, hit save and exit. And actually we want to go ahead and change our model to Haiku, save and exit. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and hit this prepare button over here. All right, and it looks like our agent instructions were erased. So let's go back to our code and make sure we get our agent instructions. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and save those. We're gonna save and exit. And we're gonna go ahead and click prepare. Now we should say, what experiences does Brandon have? We're gonna look here, we're gonna show the trace. Tracing for us is going through the steps. And as you can see, it generated a SQL query. So we're gonna go ahead and copy that. We're gonna go back to our playground here. And we're just gonna go ahead and say pip install, and let's say LangChain. We're installing this into our default environment since I don't seem to have it there. And just really quickly, Don't mind this. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and load this up. So I'm gonna go ahead and run this in my demo over here. So now I have the database loaded. Now I wanna get the functions. Well, I don't necessarily need that. So let's go db.run. And just to show you that this works. So the idea would be that you have one agent that just does this SQL query generation, and then another one that actually runs the actual query. You could put this in the same one as if you wanted to as well. So as you can see here, experience Brandon Phillips, all right. AWS, Solutions Architect, okay. Technical Account Manager, IT Support Engineer at Amazon. Okay, great. So it's showing me all my experiences. Great. So now we can do something like, let's just say we have someone who doesn't speak English very well, might be a little bit broken. So we're going to go ahead and refresh this. And what does do Brandon do? Okay, and we're going to wait and see what comes back here. And unfortunately, without more context with Brandon's question, so it gives me just the peak that our function gives us, and it's telling me, it can't tell me, right? So this is where prompt engineering and finessing a bit more comes in. You finesse that prompt, make sure you finesse the actual model to make it understand what you're trying to get it to do. So one other functionality I wanted to show you here was getting structured output. So if this agent is going to be the precursor to generating an actual query, which is going to be passed to run in some other system, maybe we want some structured output. So quickly, I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can do that. So we're going to go ahead and navigate to our agent builder, and we're going to go down to the bottom and go to advanced prompts and click edit. Now we have post-processing instructions. And so this is going to happen after the actual orchestration. So you see these 4 tabs here, and this is the order that Bedrock Agents operates in. First as pre-processing, then orchestration, then knowledge-based response generation, and then post-processing. So we're going to go ahead and override the post-processing template details, and we're going to activate this template. And it's going to say you're an agent tasked with providing more context as to the function calling output. So we're going to go ahead and erase this. And we're going to go ahead and say you're tasked with outputting the response in a structured JSON format based on the following JSON schema. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put schema tags. And let's go ahead and close this out. And we're just going to leave the rest of this here. And what we want to do is we want to generate a schema. So we can go ahead and do that using LangChain. And we'll just go ahead and create a Scratch file here. Let's go ahead and say scratch.py. And we'll say, and of course, if you know this from the top of your head, feel free to do it. We'll say from Pydantic, import base model, right? And what we want to do is we want to output a string. So, or excuse me, a SQL query. So we'll say class, and we'll say SQL query as the name. It's of type base model. And what we're going to want to output is the SQL query, and that's going to be a string. So very simple. And what we'll do here is we'll just say SQL query dot model JSON schema. And we're just going to go ahead and run all of this. And we get a nice JSON schema here. And we're going to put this in our schema instructions. So from here, what we'll do is we'll scroll down, save and exit, and make sure these all look great. Okay, hit save and exit, and we're going to prepare again. So we'll say one more time, what experiences does Brandon have? We're going to wait for this to complete. It's going rather quickly. And as you can see, it output into JSON format SQL query, and it gave us exactly what we were looking for. Now, to solve the last problem, where we had what does Brandon do? What do Brandon do? We're going to go ahead and just upgrade the model to Sonnet. If we're not looking to do a lot more prompt engineering, we can, of course, throw money at the problem as always to solve it. And so what do Brandon do with Sonnet? Let's see if Sonnet can go ahead and figure out what this query is based on the table information it's given. Okay, Brandon, okay, so it doesn't get it correct either. So you just saw real time that even just these simple queries, and the idea would be is we want to make sure that we can even interpret some of the worst asked output. So with all that being said, go ahead and play around with these prompts and go ahead and play with this demo. Let us know what you come up with. And of course, let me know. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and y'all have a wonderful day. It's your boy B-Phil. Peace.